Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight? How's everybody doing? Welcome on into the live. Welcome into Saturday Night Live. Not the original, the copy. Welcome in. I don't know if you guys have been bored today, but I've been pretty bored today. I thought about coming on earlier, actually, because it was like, I was like, nobody's on YouTube today, it seemed like. So I hope everyone's doing good. Hope you guys are having a great week, great weekend. It was actually nice here today. The weather was nice. I don't know if it was nice where you guys live, but it was pretty nice for, being November. For being November, I had to go. I had to go to the BMV, DMV, wherever you live, whichever you call it. So that was how I spent my Saturday. Can't beat that. But I've noticed that the Department of Motor Vehicles, where I live now, compared to where I grew up, it's a lot nicer. It's not bad sitting in there. Where I grew up, it was terrible. It was just, it would be the worst day of your life. Really, it really would. To be sitting in there. So it was perfect sweatshirt weather. You're very right. You're very right. Welcome in, everybody. I see some new names. I love that. Hopefully Boo Thing's doing good, Ashley. I saw that Ashley was in here. I saw Trixie was in. It's good to see everybody. Hey, Holly. I can go back up a little bit. I didn't realize people were sneaking in as I was going to press the live button. So welcome on in. If you guys want to become a member of our awesome channel, I'm going to put the membership link in the chat for you guys. Also, if you don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, that gets us into the algorithm. And every YouTuber loves that stuff. 193 kayakers or kayak racers. Oh, wow. Ooh, that was probably fun though. You were composing today, anything but boring. That's anything but boring. Mine was pretty boring. I was afraid they were going to say, like, call my number. This isn't a place where you pick your number and you sit in your seat and you like watch a board, and it'll show you the number they're on. The place I go to is smaller, but it was so busy today. But they were writing like a letter and then 3 like numbers after it. So mine was like D223 or something. But then I would hear them call like J something. And then I'm like looking at my paper. I'm like, did I get skipped? Am I at the end? It was kind of confusing. I think they had different lanes for different appointments. But did you guys know? Now, let me tell you this. I don't even know what we were talking about. Well, I don't even know what case we were talking about. We were talking about a case on the channel. And I asked you guys if you had ever kept your driver's license. Remember, I don't even, what case was that for? What was that even for? You guys might remember. But we talked about it. Let me see. When was that? Like last week. And we were like half of you guys were like, yeah, I keep my ID. And the other half was like, no, I don't keep my ID. And I was like, oh, well, Vincent kept his. Well, they gave me mine today. They gave me a piece of paper and my ID back. And they were like, bye. And I was like, what? And they're like, they'll send it to you in the mail. You just like have this little piece of paper with your picture on it for like a few weeks until they send it to you. Was it this case? I couldn't remember. It was this case. Jan, it was this case because she was going over to Puerto Rico. Shouldn't need that go there. But yes, thanks, Jan. I was like, we were just talking about this. That would have bothered me to no end too. So thank you. So yeah, they just gave me my old ID back. And I was like, oh. And she read off. She was kind of loud. I don't care about my height and weight or whatever. And I just want to keep it the same. I'm not going to get on a scale. But she was just like kind of loud. And I was just like, dang, girl. I'm right here. Don't have to say it that loud. Don't have to say it that loud. I'm right here. It was kind of funny. It was kind of funny in a way. And then they like ask you, I don't know, they just ask you weird questions now. But anyway, we'll get into tonight's live. I was just kind of like chit-chatting for a minute, letting people get in the door, They didn't stand mine void. No. They did. Like the last time, I think they put like holes in it. This time, she's handed it back to me. Hey, Karen, welcome in. Yeah, she just handed my ID back and was like, bye. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, see you later. I ran. I was like, I'm out of here. Bye. Don't ask me anything else. Let me share this thing here with you. Put it on my screen here. But I wanted to just put it up and then I can remove it. There we go. Yeah, they always had the hole punch our old IDs. Yeah, that's what they did with my old one. They didn't do it with this one. They just gave it to me. I must just have one of those faces. They trusted me, I guess. I don't know that. They should have probably stamped it. She said something to me, but I thought she said like send it back, but she didn't say anything. I don't think so. They can have it back if they want. I'll just have 2 now, I guess. I didn't even know that it was expired until I had to go use it. And I was like, oops. But they let you extend it for like 8 years now. So I'm like till 2031. So the ID is going to last for a long time. But we are going to go over the case of Caitlyn Armstrong, involving Caitlyn Armstrong. But tonight, so her trial started November 1st, which was this Wednesday. So what they're doing for her trial, the American justice system is just very funny. Every state is different. And I'm surprised that Texas doesn't just like let you just film everything in that state, you know, because it's Texas. But they're only streaming parts of the trial. So they're streaming like opening and closing statements, and they're also streaming the verdict. So when the verdict comes out and then closing statements, we'll probably stream those, of course. The verdict especially. We want to see what the verdict is. We want to know. But if you need to get caught up on any of it, you can look on my my playlist under Caitlyn Armstrong, and I have like 4 or 5 videos under that playlist, and we did like a timeline and all of that stuff. So that'll all be centralized there. But tonight, since like we're unable to see inside the courtroom, we will be reading some articles. Well, one article, and then I was going to play you a couple videos, short videos, and then we'll play Nancy Grace. And we'll hear what she has to say. Because she's got a lot to say. She's back over here right now. I got to get her over here. Yeah, we need to see the outcome. Yeah. Hey, Doodle Mom, welcome on in. Welcome in, everybody. Get a seat, get a snack. Snack and a seat. And when I saw this picture today, like I saw her come into court or whatever. I saw this picture. They did film opening statements. She looks really small to me. I don't know if she looks like she lost weight or if she's just always been that small, but like her jawline and her neck looks just very small. Like her collar of her shirt looks almost like a men's size because she's so small. But I guess that's probably what jail will do to you. Yeah, Kevin, I wish they really would have streamed the whole trial. I don't know why, especially with it being Texas. Like I said, you know, Texas, I mean, they're open to a lot over there, but she is facing 99 years in prison. So like to me, like I was looking at her eyes and everything. I was just like staring at her earlier. And I was like, she looks like she's trying not to think about anything. Like she just looks kind of like a cold stare, but, and this will get us, this article will get everybody kind of caught up too. So if you don't know what this case is about, this will get everybody a little refresher. So the murder trial for Caitlyn Armstrong got underway Wednesday, about 18 months after she was accused of killing professional cyclist Moriah Mo Wilson in Austin in May 2022. The case garnered national attention after authorities said Armstrong left the country with a fraudulent passport and was arrested in Costa Rica more than 40 days later. Authorities announced last year that they had suspected Armstrong had fatally shot Wilson. I want to turn that up a little bit. Over a love triangle with another pro cyclist. Armstrong, 35, has pleaded not guilty to murder and faces up to 99 years in prison if she is convicted. Here is what we know about the murder trial. So these are the facts. Instead of doing my like timeline again, I figured I would just go over this one. So the facts is Wilson, a Vermont native. So this is going to be Mo, the victim, who is a competitive gravel and mountain bike racer, was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m. May 11th, 2022. Wilson had been shot in the head and chest at a friend's home in East Austin before a race that she was among the favorites to win. In the fall of 2022, Wilson was romantically involved with Colin Strickland, an Austin-based pro cyclist whose 3-year relationship had ended with Armstrong, a yoga teacher and real estate agent, according to a police affidavit. When the fling with Wilson fizzled out, Strickland rekindled his relationship with Armstrong, but police say Wilson had been hanging out with Strickland shortly before she was killed, and they suspected Armstrong shot Wilson after Strickland dropped Wilson off at a friend's place. So give you guys more context to the story. Mo was in town to, do a bike race. She's a gravel biker. She's like one of the best that there was, that there is. And so she was here to do a race. She had already knew Colin from racing together. They formed a relationship for a couple weeks. She leaves. He gets back with Kaitlin, which I don't even know if they were ever broke up, to be honest. I don't know. But he ends up playing them kind of both. And he goes out with Mo when she's in town for the bike race. And Kaitlin knew about it because she had an app on his phone where she could read his messages, or she used another computer to read his messages. And he wasn't aware of that. So she showed up at the friend's home that Mo was staying at, and allegedly, because that's what she's on trial for, shot her. And they still haven't said, I don't think, how many shots there were. Like, I don't know if she emptied it or not. I've heard 3 so far. It seems like when I listened to opening statements, but I don't know. I thought maybe I missed something, because it just seems like she was so mad, and it's terrible. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Hey, Arlene. Prosecutors say Armstrong was able to track Wilson's movements on the exercise app Strava, and then shot Wilson 3 times, including once through the heart. Prosecutors say that the casings from the gunshots match Armstrong's 9mm Sig Sauer handgun, and that her vehicle appears to match the SUV seen on security footage. But defense attorney Jeffrey Puryear has argued that no video evidence or witnesses can put Armstrong at the scene of the shooting. I beg to differ, buddy. We've all seen the surveillance. That's definitely a black Jeep with a black bike rack on the back. Now, I know they probably make a lot of those, but at that time, in that spot, she's not home. He tries to call her, or Colin tries to text her 3 times. No response, and then she just shows up. Here I am. I want to know what that conversation was like when she got home that night. Because you all know she didn't pull back in that driveway and just walk up and be like, hey, honey, how you doing? And he didn't say, where you been? Or she wasn't like a mess. I mean, if you're chasing someone through a house, I don't care if it's like, 500 square feet or 1,200 square feet. If you're chasing them through somewhere, you're going to like be sweaty. You're going to be worked up. It's going to take a lot for you to come down off that. Your face is going to be flushed, I would feel like. Your hair might be frizzy and crazy because she has a lot of hair. I wish I had that much hair. But, just things like that. I don't know. You would think that he would be like, where you been? I mean, I would be. If that was Vincent and he left, even if like I just came home and he wasn't here and then he came home after me, even if there was like nothing going on, if I would just be like, where you been? That's just natural to say. Steve, I feel the same way when I talk about drinking soda. So this is the background. So on the day Wilson was killed, Armstrong and Strickland swam. That's wrong. Okay. So shouldn't say Armstrong. I'm going to read this the way it should say. On the day that Wilson was killed, Wilson and Strickland swam at a local pool before having dinner together, according to the police affidavit. Strickland, who was quickly cleared by investigators of any potential wrongdoing, had lied to Armstrong about his whereabouts the night he hung out with Wilson, the affidavit says. And we read the arrest warrant, the affidavit. There is no way to adequately express the regret and torture I feel about my proximity to this horrible crime, Strickland said after the shooting in a statement to the Austin American-Statesman. I am sorry, and I simply cannot make sense of this unfathomable tragedy. Prosecutors say Armstrong had access to Strickland's messages on a laptop at their shared home in Austin, and she could have figured out where Wilson was staying based on a bike ride earlier in the day that was posted to Strava. Okay, so she was using both. She was using the computer to look at his messages and then Strava to look at her. Wow. Puryear said Wednesday that Armstrong is trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence, according to KVUE, an ABC affiliate in Austin. They have DNA. Yeah. So it's not circumstantial evidence. Important context. Police had brought Armstrong in on an unrelated warrant and questioned her about Wilson's death the day after the shooting. Even though she could not explain why her vehicle was in the area at the time of the slaying, Armstrong was released from police custody because of a technical error. Basically, they didn't have her birthday right on her, like in the computer. So they were like, oh, it could have been a different Caitlyn Armstrong. I would be like, no, you're going to stay here until I figure out if it's you or not. That's what you would think. I don't know. Days after tipsters came forward with more evidence linking her to the killings, police issued a warrant charging Armstrong with first-degree murder. But by that time, Armstrong had sold her vehicle for about $12,000 and left the country. Her disappearance sparked a search that went on for more than 40 days. Then on June 29th, 2020, she was captured in Costa Rica, a Costa Rica hostel, according to the U.S. Marshal Service. Authorities say she used her sister's name, email, credit card, and passport to enter Costa Rica, where prosecutors allege Armstrong spent nearly $6,500 for surgery to change her appearance, used several aliases to try to establish herself as a yoga instructor, and cut and darken her hair. In addition to facing the murder charge, she also faces a federal charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. And she has some more charges on her now, too, because she tried to escape from police custody, just a few weeks ago. The shooting rocked the cycling community, and the cycling magazine Velo News described Wilson as the winningest woman in the American off-road scene. Amy Clarity, a fellow cyclist, told the New Yorker that Wilson's death was the most tragic and shocking thing that's ever happened to the cycling community. The start of Armstrong's murder trial comes 3 weeks after she attempted to escape custody as officers escorted her to a medical appointment outside of the jail. Travis County Sheriff's officials said she made it about a block and a half before she was restrained. Armstrong faces an additional felony escape charge punishable by up to 20 years in prison if she's convicted. Wow, 20 years? That's went up. I'm pretty sure. I thought that was only like 10 years, 8 years for escape, but wow, 20. Wow, you can get up to 20. And with her doing it one time, they would probably give her a lot of that 20. So it says, what's next? The murder trial in Austin is expected to last about 2 weeks. Oh, it's even shorter than I thought. I don't know why I was thinking it was longer than that. I grab my drink really quick. Oh, wow. Oh, happy birthday, Alicia's mom. 94, my lordy. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't think you got that long for... Man, they don't mess around, I guess, in that aspect in Texas. Oh, yeah, Cheryl wasn't here. I don't know. She should be. Maybe she'll come in here in a minute. Usually if we say someone's name, they'll come in. Yeah, I haven't seen her tonight. And sometimes she'll sneak in early. So it says Brenda Kennedy, who is presiding over the trial, is allowing cameras in the courtroom at the Blackwell Thurman Criminal Justice Center to film opening statements, closing arguments, and the verdict, but not witness testimony. During that time, prosecutors said the jury will hear Wilson's final screams and the shots that killed her. Nearby surveillance equipment captured the shooting. The last thing Mo did on this earth was scream in terror, Travis County Prosecutor Ricky Jones told jurors during opening statements on Wednesday. You'll hear those screams. Jones said that seconds after screams and 2 gunshots are heard on the video. Caitlyn Armstrong stood over Mo Wilson and put a 3rd shot right into Mo's heart. Per year, the defense attorney is expected to argue how police had tunnel vision in the pursuit of Armstrong and that authorities were focused on keeping her in their crosshairs. He reiterated to the jury that the case against Armstrong lacks video evidence or witnesses. They do have that surveillance. And they have all of that video evidence of her fleeing the country with her sister's ID. What's that about, honey? You can't just say, oh, I just grabbed the wrong ID and passport and email. Use that one too. Yeah. You didn't hear from the prosecution that not one eyewitness saw Caitlyn Armstrong allegedly commit this murder, not one. Per year said. According to the AP, because there isn't one. I wonder how many times there's an eyewitness in a case, like to the actual like crime. Probably not. Yeah, it's really sad. And then I have actually, let me see here. I have a video I wanted to show you. I actually found this video on Twitter earlier, and it's so we were trying to look at Google Maps one night of the crime scene, like just not the crime scene, but around the area, and they had it all like blurred out because, of course, a crime happened there, and that's what they do a lot of the time, and so we couldn't really like see what was going on. Well, somebody drove and like did like a drive by there, so they drove. So what I'm going to show you is they're going to be driving by the property. You'll see the wooden stairs, like the residence will be with the wooden steps. And then further down that she goes, a little bit towards the end of the video, it's where Mo Wilson's bike was found with, now that we're finding out in trial, Caitlyn Armstrong's DNA was recovered off of the bike. And I think that it was recovered off of the front and like off of the seat where like if you were carrying the bike or something, like sitting it down, like putting it down or something. So let me share this tab with you here. And I'll just turn the volume off. And then that way we can just kind of watch it together. It's like 1:47 seconds long. So like the house is off to the left of the screen right now. If you're like facing this way, like facing towards the road. Because it's like a house, and then the back of it, I believe, is like a apartment, and then like above the garage here. So it'll be this one here coming up with the Subaru. Now I can see why her friend Caitlin, the girl that she was staying with, said, "Hey, get your bag off the back porch," because it is very open back there. And I guess down here was where the bike was found, because it was only like, 60 yards or something from the house. It wasn't very far. 60 some yards. Hey, Dynamite, welcome in. Hey, Doodlebug. No, this is from another girl that I don't even follow them on Twitter. They just happened to have the video. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, and I think that's where the bike was found, wasn't it? Like around this area? It's like, why didn't you take the bike further away? I mean, I guess when they found the body, they were going to, but if she was trying to make it look like a burglary, like I would have just taken the bike with me probably. I would have been too afraid to stop again. You know what I mean? Like I would have been too scared. Like after I got back in the car, I would have just wanted to get out of there. She just was like, I'm just going to get back out of my vehicle and put the car out or take the bike out. Or she rode the bike down there and then got in her car. I don't know how she did it, but she did it some way. Very, very crazy. So I want to play a couple of like shorter videos for you guys before I play the Nancy video. It'll just kind of get us caught up to the trial, and then Nancy will say her piece. The first video is like 10 minutes, and then the second one's like 2 minutes. So because they've been covering, I feel like they've been covering, I guess it's only going to be a 2-week trial because they're really going through it. Like, so I want to play this first video. This will be about the opening statements. And then the second video is about the Ring audio camera, video camera that they have her on. So thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys. If you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, it does help the channel. And tomorrow, I think we're going to cover like a couple different cases, maybe. I don't know. Or we might cover a newer one. I don't know yet. But so if you guys are liking the content, make sure you're subscribed. We'd love to have you. If you'd like to be part of our channel membership, I will put that in the chat really quick while I'm getting this video up. Okay. I was listening to this earlier and I was like, oh, this sounds really good. So I was trying to find something that kind of was covering a little bit of the trial. That way, we have a few different things to listen to. But This is, like I said, they're having her trial right now that started on November 1st, but they're only doing opening, closing statements, and then the verdict that we can actually stream and watch. Everything else is going to be basically what the news comes out with, like local news, or, like I haven't really seen Law and Crime or Court TV really covering it, other than they just covered the opening statements. But I did see that News Nation is covering this like hardcore, and so is Nancy. So I can work with that. I'm going to go ahead and play this here for you guys. Let me turn it down so it doesn't hurt your ears.
Welcome back. I'm Lexi Petrovich. Thanks so much for joining us here. A live look from Austin, Texas, as we approach 6:30 Eastern. It's a big day today. Opening statements were held in the Caitlyn Armstrong murder trial, a trial that so many people have been talking about. She's accused of shooting and killing Moriah Wilson in an East Austin home last year. We do want to bring you an update here and let you know all that happened today in that Austin courtroom. We're being joined by Fox 7's Carissa Lemkel, who's joining us here. Carissa, thanks so much. Give us a recap as to what happened today and what were the biggest takeaways from opening statements.
Yeah, Lexi, hi. Like you said, we heard opening statements today, and then multiple witnesses were called to the stand. So we got to hear from some of the last people to see Moriah Wilson alive. Did Caitlyn Armstrong shoot and kill Moriah Wilson inside an East Austin home on May 11th, 2022? That is a question that a jury will answer.
How do you plead?
There are three key players in this case, according to the state in opening statements on Wednesday: Moriah Wilson, Colin Strickland, and Kaitlin Armstrong. Assistant DA Ricky Jones opened with a focus on the victim, an up-and-coming professional cyclist just shy of 26.
The last thing Mo did on this earth was scream in terror.
Then walking through the timeline of events leading up to and after Wilson's death.
May 13th, some important things happened. You'll see Caitlyn Armstrong on a video camera at CarMax in South Austin, near their home.
Letting the jury know the kind of evidence they would be seeing during the trial, including cell phone and GPS data.
You hear that they swabbed DNA from Mo Wilson's bike, which they found in some weeds, maybe 10 yards from the bottom of those stairs. But she'll testify that the DNA on the handlebars was a very strong likelihood that the DNA on the handlebars included DNA from Caitlyn Armstrong.
And the state just discussed with you what you will see, what you will hear about, what you will hear throughout the course of this trial. But I want to talk to you about what you didn't hear about. What you didn't hear about. You didn't hear that not one witness saw Caitlyn Armstrong allegedly commit this murder. Not one, because there isn't one.
The defense in opening statements reminding the jury that the state has the burden of proof.
And you didn't hear about any camera footage showing Caitlyn Armstrong at the scene of this shooting, despite there being tons of cameras in the area.
Following opening statements, witnesses took the stand, including Moriah Wilson's brother, Matt Wilson, and Caitlin Cash, seen here in this video outside of the courtroom. Wilson was staying with Cash ahead of an upcoming race. Cash found Wilson covered in blood when she came home after dinner the night of May 11th. She says the last text she received from Wilson was around 5 p.m. "I think I'm going to go swimming with Colin, FYI." Much of the focus during questioning from both sides, the witness perception of Strickland and Wilson's relationship, both prior and at the time of the murder. Her friends and family say she and Strickland had some kind of romantic involvement in October 2021, while Armstrong and Strickland were on a break, but were just friends in May of 2022 when they hung out the night of her murder. And before court wrapped up for the day, we did also hear from members of APD and Austin Travis County EMS. Some of the first who were there on the scene to try and save Wilson's life. Lexi.
Yeah, and Carissa, Colin Strickland, has he issued any sort of statements since the trial began this week, or are we expecting to hear from him during the trial at all, potentially to testify?
Yeah, so as you've noticed, Strickland is a big player in this case. His name was mentioned over and over again today. Like we mentioned, it seemed like he had some kind of romantic involvement with both Wilson as well as Caitlyn Armstrong, but we did not see him in court today, though we are under the impression that at some point he will be testifying. Back to you.
And Carissa, one other question for you as well. Caitlyn Armstrong, was there any sort of emotion that you were able to tell on her face or anything that stood out to you during opening statements today?
You know, no emotion we could really tell from Caitlyn Armstrong. She was intently listening to all the testimony throughout, but we didn't see a lot of expression on her face. The most we saw probably was from friends and family of Moriah Wilson. You know, they played some graphic content, the recordings of the 911 call that her friends made, as well as the body camera footage of the officer responding to Wilson. And when that body camera footage was played, some of the family members actually walked out of the courtroom.
Sure, understandably. All right, Fox 7's Carissa Lemcole there with that update. Carissa, thanks so much. We'll be checking in with you and our team at Fox 7 throughout the trial.
Thanks, Lexi.
All right, and we do want to play out a little bit more of opening statements from earlier today. This is from the state that happened earlier this morning, as we heard in Carissa's report there, some very emotional moments throughout opening statements already. Jury selected on Monday in this trial. Well, let's listen in here as the state started their opening statements.
To the allegations as read by state in paragraph 1 of the indictment, how do you plead? The allegations as read by the state to paragraph 2 of the indictment, how do you plead? You may be seated. Does the state have an opening statement to make at this time?
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
This case is about Anna, Moriah.
It might be really soft on this one.
Everybody calls her Mo Wilson. Mo was an accomplished college skier from Vermont. A few years ago, she got into a sport called gravel racing. In about 3 short years, she became one of the best in the world at it. On May 11th, 2022, at 9:15 p.m. here in Austin, Texas, the last thing Mo did on this earth was scream in terror. And you hear those screams. There's a surveillance camera with an audio portion to it. We'll play that for you. And you'll hear those screams. Those screams are followed by ah, ah, 2 gunshots. One to the front of the head, one to the side of the head that hits the index finger as it passes. You won't hear any more screams out there. 45 seconds. we intend to prove to you, you witness next year, after 4 or 5 seconds silence, Caitlyn Armstrong stood over Mo Wilson and put a third shot right in Mo Wilson's heart. 9:15 p.m.
I just have to say this, like, you have to be calculated. Like, I was, in my mind, you know, because we didn't know about the placement of the shots and stuff until they did opening statements. But to me, I thought, no, I forgot what I was going to say. Shoot. Dag nabbit. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Let me just listen to this for a minute and then I'll remember. Oh, okay. What was it? Okay. What was I saying? Something about, oh, okay. So she had to be like, I feel like calculated. Because if you're in the heat of the moment, she's chasing Mo through this house. Mo gets to the bathroom. She's shot. She's wounded. She's on the floor. You would think that there's, you know what I mean? Like there's no more of a threat, but she wanted to make sure that it was done. And she wanted to make sure that she was gone. If she's putting it in her heart, like that's like, I mean, that's aiming and firing. That's not just blindly shooting in a heat of passion, in a rage, you know. That's what I was picturing in my mind, was like some sort of rage, not like it's any better, but you know, that's just what I pictured until he like really told the story, like on like he really told Mo's story well for the jury to understand the severity of it. And she was found in between like the wall and the toilet too. So like that little spot of a wall, she literally was just trying to get away from her.
Good morning. My name is Rick Jones. I represent the state of Texas. Along with my co-counsel, Mr. Gonzalez, Stewart, Jenny Sullivan.
All right, listening in here to some of those opening statements today in the Caitlyn Armstrong murder trial. A lot that was said today and a lot that is still to come in this trial that so many people have been watching closely. Pulling up this tweet here from Fox 7's Carissa Lemkel, who we just spoke with, giving us kind of a breakdown of some of what the state showed and told the jury today that they can expect to hear from this case. That includes all of this evidence that they say is piling up against Caitlyn Armstrong. For example, May 13th of last year, Armstrong on camera at CarMax selling a Jeep, then Ubers to the airport, where police say she then fled the country, was on the run for 43 days before ultimately being captured in Costa Rica. They also said that Jeep that she sold, that was caught on camera near the house in which Moriah Wilson was found killed at that May 2022 incident that happened. So kind of a breakdown here from Fox 7 of some of that evidence that was told to the jury.
Okay. Caught on your birthday, Doodlebug? That's not a very good birthday present, huh? Not for you anyway, but well, for you it is, but not for her. So he ends up saying in the third one later on. Yeah. Because I think she got her twice, and then she was on the floor, and then she did the third shot, which to me, I mean, I really think that's calculated. Before the opening, for some reason, I was thinking blind rage. I don't, you know, I mean, even though the bike was taken and like, you know, but it was only taken like 60 feet from, or like 60 yards away. It wasn't taken very far. She was very obsessed with him. And he decided, I mean, you know, it happens. He decided he wanted to hang out with Mo. She was in town. He probably thought, she's going to be out of town by the end of the weekend. I better hang out with her. He hung out with her for like 2 hours. Literally all they did, if you think about it, if you just put it all into context, they went swimming and got a hamburger. I mean, that's pretty innocent. Like really, you know, I mean, on the grand scheme of things, it's not like they were at a hotel or, you know, anything like that. Like they went swimming and they got a hamburger. I wonder what was it? Like, was it just because it was Mo? I mean, she just like went into a rage. Now I'm wondering, at one point, did she go get the gun? Like, does she already have it with her? Because I don't think she probably had it with her to begin with. I think that something put her to that spot, and that's when she went maybe got the gun. I don't think she had it with her in the beginning. Hello, AR Hayes, welcome in. If it's innocent, you don't hide it. Exactly, Terry. Yeah, like he probably feels like some sort of guilt over that, and he should, because I mean, but I don't know. It just sucks because he lied. Oh, you should have heard me last night, guys. I was cussing at the TV when I got off the live, because I think it was Banfield was on, and they were talking about this case, and they were talking about Colin, and she was like, she felt bad for him, and I was like, don't you feel bad for him? And I was letting her have it. I was letting I think it was either her or Kuma, one of those people I was watching. I was so mad because, you know, he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing to either of them, but he should have known to a degree what she was capable of. Like, who decides to buy a gun? Like, I mean, out of the blue. Like, if I were to go to Vincent and be like, hey, hon, do you want to take up go to the gun range together? He'd be like, why? Like, you know, it would just be something random, because we're like, they're our age. So, you know, and they're like mid-30s. It's just a weird hobby to take up all of a sudden when you usually ride bicycles. Just saying, you know? So how does she get him to buy the gun? Like, it must have been something like that. Like, we'll go to the driving range or the shooting range together, shooting range together. I don't know. He was playing one off the other. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why he's been hiding, because he is partly to blame, I feel like. I mean, I know that if you're young, you're young and dumb, but they're my age. You know what I mean? They're what, mid, late 30s. At what point do you say, you're an adult and you got to take accountability? You know what I mean? Like, he knew what he was doing. He pulled that motorcycle over 2 different times to text Caitlyn, say, hey, I'm coming home. Do you need anything? Or, you know, do you want food or something? He said, like, he was trying to get an answer out of her, because the first time he texted her, he said, hey, I'm on my way home, or something like that. And then he texted her again and he said, do you want food? Or did you make up your mind about getting food, or something like that? I think he was trying to get an answer out of her. And then he said he went home, and that's when she pulled up, like, later on. So I don't know. That's just questionable. But I wanted to play this. This is only 2 minutes, and then we'll watch the Nancy Grace video that just came out. She's got a lot to say. And I put her behind me. I forgot to tell you guys I moved her, and she would have scared the crap out of me if I wouldn't have said something. I just caught a glimpse of the scarf. Thank God I put the scarf on her. She said she was afraid of growing homeless population and of the growing homeless population in a recent break-in nearby. Oh, Terry Dean, that's dirty. See, I would still be like, well, that's still weird though. I mean, it's not weird to get a gun. It's not at all. But just like out of the blue to have 2 guns all of a sudden. It's not just one person with 1 gun. It's 2 guns. Like, we're both getting guns. I don't know. I'm all for guns, but you know, I mean, guns with safety, you know, but I'm curious about it. It makes me so curious. Donna, I agree that. I agree with you with that. I think that I think he was totally into himself, you know, and he was probably feeling himself when Mo was giving him some attention. She's the best in her, you know, in her class. Like, she's the best female. She's like I don't know. Nancy said the best in the world, but I don't know if that's true, but I heard she was extremely, extremely, extremely good. And I think that Caitlyn was just extremely envious of her. And I'm wondering if they saw each other before this, like at bike races, before her and Colin got together. Like, if there was ever any jealousy before her and Colin dated between them. You know what I mean? Or if Caitlyn was fine with Mo before anything happened, or if all of this stuff started happening after she knew that her and Colin had been hanging out. So yeah, that's what he said. He was helping her career, but he's the one whose career would benefit from her up and coming career. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Terry. Very, very true. Let me go ahead and play this for you guys. Yeah, and she was young. She was only, 25? She was just getting ready to turn 26, so she's extremely young. He's in his, 30, 36, 37, 37, 38. So, I mean, he's getting a little bit older. I don't know how good you can be in that field for how long. Cycling, I mean, that's pretty hard work. So she was just starting her career, and he was kind of like, I feel like, going towards the ending of his in a way.
We heard from a previous neighbor named Michael Donlin, who had a camera outside of his house continuously filming video and audio. He says that it's obvious that in the recording from that night there was screaming, then 2 gunshots, a pause, and a 3rd gunshot. His camera also captured a black Jeep previously in the night. The prosecution had Donlin describe the audio and the Jeep. He described a black bike rack on the back of the Jeep. Defense attorneys asked if he's ever seen a bike rack or a black Jeep elsewhere in Austin, to which he answered sure. Jurors also heard from other witnesses, including Austin Police Sergeant Ronaldo Ramirez. He took the stand at the start of the day, resuming where court left off on Wednesday. The defense asked about what was included in his report and what was left out. In his testimony Thursday, he said that at the end of his shift on May 11th into May 12th, their person of interest was Colin Strickland. While Strickland is not on trial, he is important to this case, as the prosecution called him one of the 3 key figures. We've yet to hear from him in court, but I asked an unaffiliated attorney questions about this.
How do you think his testimony could move the case?
Well, my understanding from the information that's been put out is that the prosecution has painted the defendant as being jealous of the victim because of the boyfriend, and that's something I think they're going to have to add to, and probably are adding to their case as far as trying to put forth evidence of that, so they can make that argument that this was the reason she did it, and therefore it was her. And I think the opposite is going to come into play for the defense, where they're going to try to downplay the relationship that he had with either one of these women.
Trial starts back up tomorrow morning. Jessica Taylor, CBS Austin News.
Thank you for watching.
Okay. So that's some of the case updates for you guys there. If you're just now joining us, welcome to our live. I'm Tanya or TitaniumBuilt. I forgot to tell you guys that earlier in the live. We've already been on the live for 48 minutes now. So it's fine. It's totally fine. That's Nancy over here. If you haven't met her, Cardboard Nancy, 2-dimensional Nancy. She's really tall though. Like, she looks like she's booming over me. Oh my lordy. I got her looks on camera they're really good. I'm going to show you. I always pause her at the worst time. So that's what I was looking at. I was laughing. But we'll go ahead and we'll put Nancy on there. Look at Nancy's face on here. I know. Isn't she awesome? She scared me one night. I always have to tell you guys this story because it's just that funny. I was on panel, or no, I wasn't on panel. Was I? No, I was over here. That was another night she scared me. But I sat her there, and I was like right here, and I was going to put her behind me, and I completely forgot about it. Like, I completely forgot Nancy was just hanging out right there. And I stood up and I turned real quick, and I'm blind in one eye. So I only got like a glimpse of somebody. And I freaked. I screamed super loud. Like, good thing the mute was on. I screamed so loud that I thought Vincent would surely come in here to see what happened. He didn't. He didn't. I don't know how she managed to do that. Or he. Yeah, she's always watching over me. I know the pause game. I know. I always feel bad for Nancy. I do it every time too. This is just the beginning of the video that I usually do pause it, and she's usually got a face on her. I think she's wearing a black shirt tonight. So she's just in her black with her little cross necklace that she wears. But I'll go ahead and play this for you guys. If you guys don't mind hitting the like button, it really will help. This one is the newest one that she came out with. She did come out with 2, and I was going to play them both, but they kind of were not like the same, but they were like similar. They had like similar things in them. So I just decided to play the latest one. So she'll talk about her escape and all that stuff in this one. So I'll go ahead and play it. If you guys don't mind just taking a second to hit the like button, it really does help the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe. We're getting closer. We're trucking closer to 13,000 subscribers. We'd love to have you on board.
The trial of the so-called glam yoga instructor is underway. Now, this is after she flees the jurisdiction of Texas, uses a fake passport, her sister's passport, to hide out in Costa Rica at a hostel where she wants to teach surf yoga, I believe. gets a nose job, and then finally is brought home, extradited back to the U.S., where she then escapes from the jail again. Hey, guys, you better make sure she doesn't pull a Bundy and jump out a window at the courthouse and run for it again. This woman will go on the run. This will be her, third or fourth time escaping authorities? Well, yesterday in the courtroom, and as we speak now, the case commencing. We heard opening statements, and man, they were something. Wait till you hear what the defense had to say following the state's opening statement. I'm going to play that for you. But we heard about the horrific discovery of Mo's body, 25-year-old young woman, crushed, crumpled between a commode and the wall, and the allegation by the state that they intend to prove that an angry lover, Caitlyn Armstrong, stood over her and shot her in the heart. Why? Because the yoga instructor's boyfriend shared a hamburger with 25-year-old Mo. You know what? I want you to hear it from the horse's mouth. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Crime Stories and on Sirius XM 111. With no further ado, let's go in the courtroom. Listen.
You heard from Caitlin Cash. She had gone to dinner. Good friend of mine, Mo Wilson. She arrives home and sees Mo on the floor. She sees her legs. She'll testify. She thought Mo had been on a strenuous ride and laying on the floor, stretching, relaxing. And she'll testify as she gets closer and sees blood and freaks out. And at 9:54 p.m., in seconds being in the apartment, she calls 911.
And in that 911 call, the friend says her brain is leaking. Her brain is leaking. I'm surprised this young girl even had the wherewithal to speak after
Sounds like to me she didn't know what she was seeing. She didn't know what the hell, how to describe what she was seeing. I heard this earlier and that really tore me up.
finding what she found. With me, an all-star panel. Joining me outside the courthouse, Tony Plahetsky, investigative reporter with the Austin American Statesman, as well as KVUE. Those opening statements were bombshells, Tony Plahetsky. How was the jury responding?
Nancy, you could see they were visibly struck by the opening statements and, as you mentioned, testimony from a young woman named Caitlin Cash. She is the one who discovered her friend's body in her own home. But during opening statements, you could absolutely see that the jurors were sitting on the edge of their seat as prosecutors unfurled what they described themselves as a mountain of evidence, some of which has been in the public space, Nancy, but some of which we were all hearing for the first time.
Oh, tell me, what did you hear for the first time, Tony?
So, Nancy, for the first time, investigators described in court and prosecutors described in court how Caitlyn Armstrong, they say, knew exactly where Moriah Wilson was, that she had access to messages that were being transmitted between Colin Strickland and Moriah Wilson. And in those messages, Moriah Wilson, Mo, said, I am staying at this exact address. This is where you are.
We've been wondering how she knew exactly where Moriah was. Moriah Mo. Take a listen to our cut 175. This is the prosecutor, Rick Jones. Listen.
Some of these witnesses, we're going to give you background on Colin and Caitlin's relationship. They met in October of 2019. And began a romantic relationship in October 2019. You heard from Colin that at some point, 2021, around the freeze, she moved in with Colin. Here that as a result of that business, they shared an iPad and a laptop that was connected to Colin's phone. So his iMessages from his phone was available on those documents, on those two apparatuses.
What he didn't know, Tony Plahetsky, that she could see, for instance, my iPad is connected to my iPhone, is connected to my laptop, is connected to the minivan. If I order from Instacart on my iPad, it pops up on my iPhone. Got to be careful at Christmas time, because when I charge something on Amazon, it pops up for some reason on my son's iPhone. So he can see what I'm buying leading up to Christmas. Is that he didn't realize the devices were interconnected, Tony Plahetsky?
Well, there was no statement about what he did or did not know, but I think it's suffice to say that he did not recognize or realize that Caitlyn Armstrong was surveilling his communication.
I will say this about the Apple products. I just realized this iPad. So my iPad's in the living room. This one's Vincent's, and I think my messages come through his. So I think that if you put the phone within reach, like to where you can sync them together, and then you know the password to that device, you can sync it to any device. Like, I mean, she could have synced that up later on. She just needs to know his little 4-digit password, which I'm sure she knew his iPad password. Or she used his finger in the middle of the night. Because, I mean, she is a little crazy.
And what we do know, and this was stated by prosecutors yesterday, is that earlier in the year, in 2022, he was so concerned about Caitlyn Armstrong knowing that he was having ongoing conversations with Mo Wilson that he actually changed Wilson's name in his phone so that if they were texting back and forth and Armstrong saw Mo Wilson's name pop up, she would not realize that's who he was talking to.
So he changed Mo Wilson's name in his devices and all of his devices to Christine Walls to secret his communications with Mo Wilson. He says after he and Mo dated, they remained friends. Okay, to Dr. Bethany Marshall, high-profile psychoanalyst joining us out of LA. Dr. Bethany, if you have to surveil the one you love, you need a new relationship. It's not necessarily you. Maybe it's them. Maybe they're cheating and you feel it, but you don't know it. So you have to check up on them all the time. You know what? It's just, that's too much trouble. If I had to figure out where David Lynch is every hour of the day and night, I'd go crazy.
In terms of Armstrong, it could fall into two categories in terms of motivation. One could be situational. Situational would be that she knows he's a cheater. He's a philanderer. There's evidence. He flirts with other girls in front of her. Or it could be characterological, meaning she's very disturbed and she has pathological envy and jealousy. And even as he was pure as the driven snow, she would check up. And these are the kind of people, Nancy, who are stalkers. This sounds like stalking to me. She was stalking him, just call it what it is, stalking him. And she was stalking Mo, and she put enormous energy into this.
To Tony Plahetsky joining us outside the courthouse, tell me about the room, the friend where Mo was staying, her coming home and finding Moriah dead.
It was this really wrenching testimony, and there was complete silence in the courtroom as she described coming home, initially seeing, first of all, she had leftovers and her cell phone, and she describes kind of dropping them as she entered her home. And Nancy, just to describe it a little further, we're talking about a back house, like a garage apartment behind another home in East Austin.
Okay, slow down. A garage apartment behind another house. Is that what you just said?
That is correct.
Okay, and before that, you were saying she swapped something out. What did she swap out? This is the friend coming home, Caitlin Cash.
Yeah, she has leftovers and her cell phone that she actually dropped on the counter as she's walking into her home. Then she sees her friend lying on the bathroom floor, and she has
she can see that from the entryway.
Exactly. We're talking about a very, very small dwelling, and she has a couple of thoughts. number one, maybe she's just had a hard workout and she's doing some stretching. Another thought is that it was so hot. She wondered if her friend Mo was hot and was lying on the bathroom tile to try to cool off. But she's saying, "Hello, I'm home. How's it going?" and was getting no response. So she goes over urgently to the bathroom and realizes that Mo is very much not okay. She doesn't describe in that moment that she sees that she's been shot, but upon closer inspection of her friend, she then sees that there is blood everywhere, and that is when she calls 911.
Tony Plahetsky, when you say she sees that there is blood anywhere, those were your words. Where? Where did the roommate, the friend? She's also named Caitlin Cash, so I'm just going to call her the friend. Where did the friend see blood?
She just described this pool of blood, but she can't apparently ascertain in that moment that her friend Mo has been shot. She just knows that there's blood everywhere. She actually at that point picks up her phone, gets her phone and calls 911. And she's saying to the 911 operator, I don't know what's wrong with her, but there's blood everywhere. There's blood everywhere.
How can that be, too? Justice Scott Morgan joining me, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, star of a hit new series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. Joe Scott, how could Moriah be lying there? And we know she was lying flat, not crunched up in a triangle, because when the friend comes home, she sees her legs splayed out on the ground. So we know she's lying flat-ish, curved from behind that, between the commode and the wall. How could she not see that she was shot?
She very well may have seen it, but her brain is not registering, what she's taking in at this moment in time, Nancy. I've, over the course of my career, interviewing people that actually discover bodies like this, they only see things in flashes many times. And it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of let this data kind of seep down through their brain. So that when they're giving that initial statement to the police, it may not be it doesn't necessarily marry up every single time with what CSI sees when they go out to the crime scene and they have their time to take this. Keep in mind, this young woman, this murder victim, is her friend. And all she wants to do is render aid. She's not thinking as far as, trying to understand what the dynamics are here. All she knows is that she sees blood and she sees injuries. And I think that you'll probably get into that. But the reality is this: she just wants to render aid to this young woman. She can't really give an assessment at that moment in time.
Did she actually say, Tony Plahetsky, her brain is leaking?
In her call to 911, she did make that statement. She did, and this is at a moment when she's also being instructed, to do chest compressions by the 911 operator, and you can hear over and over and over the friend is counting as she is doing these chest compressions. I think she gets up to 80 before EMS arrives, and she's becoming more and more distraught as this is all sinking into her, and she is realizing and recognizing the absolute terror that has transpired.
Joining me,
Nancy, if I could just add real quickly, as she's doing these chest compressions, this is the first time she will have actually been able to kind of eyeball Mo at this point in time. I mean, like up close and personal. Think about chest compressions. You might be about 18 inches away from their face and you're looking down at them. One of the rules with doing CPR is you get them flat on their back. You're doing chest compressions, and a lot of things happen when this occurs. When you're pressing down on the chest, you're going to see blood that begins to emanate from the body if you have a defect or a bullet hole. And also, she would notice at this moment in time, this is what we call extrusion. you see this extruding brain matter that's coming out of these defects or bullet holes in her head, and it would have been quite ghastly. I don't know how she made sense of it.
I'm curious why there was brain fluid and or blood coming from her head if she was only shot in the heart. Hold on. I'm going to come back to you on that. Tony Plahetsky joining me outside the courthouse right now with KVUE and the Austin American-Statesman. Alan Bennett joining me, renowned lawyer, former prosecutor, partner at Gunter, Bennett, and Anthus. Alan, thank you for being with us and all your time prosecuting. Very often, witnesses don't know what they're seeing or hearing. They hear gunshots and they go, "Oh, that was a car backfiring," because it's not within their realm of understanding. They're not used to hearing gunshots. They're not used to seeing Moriah on the floor, dead, dying, with her brain, quote, leaking. So your mind leaps to what you know, what you're used to. That's not unusual.
Absolutely, Nancy. And once again, thank you very much for having me on your program. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And having been a former prosecutor yourself and your illustrious career, you are well aware more than I that eyewitness testimony in cases is the least reliable evidence that a jury often has. We tend to put so much weight on it. We tend to think of it as the gold standard of evidence in a criminal case. But studies have shown time and time again, eyewitness testimony is actually the least reliable evidence that a jury often has. Four people see a traffic accident, you'll have four different versions of how that accident occurred. And as you well know, that's just something prosecutors and defense attorneys always have to deal with. And absolutely, I agree with you that when someone is in that unfamiliar territory, in that situation that is completely outside of their realm of experiences, I agree with the doctor. Your brain will try to fill in the gaps. Your brain will try to fill in the missing pieces of what the eyes are processing.
Guys, I want
you to know, Nancy, one of the missing pieces would be who entered the house, who shot her friend, and is she safe? Is the roommate safe? I mean,
apparently she was not
concerned
concerned at all about her own safety at that time. As you can hear on the 911 call, all she's doing is trying to save Moriah. Take a listen to our cut 188. This is the prosecutor.
She put the phone on speaker, and the 911 operator had her doing chest compressions to her friend. She will tell you she had no idea she was dead, whether she was dead or not. You hear testimony. Friends, closest friend's chest about 80 times for 8 to 10 minutes until the first responders showed up and took over.
Joining me right now, Irv Brandt, Senior Inspector, U.S. Marshal Service International, also Chief Inspector, Department of Justice, Office International Affairs, author of Solo Shot, Curse of the Blue Stone, and Flying Solo, Top of the World. Irv Brandt, I'm just trying to reconcile all the photos that we have seen of Caitlyn Armstrong, the so-called glam yoga teacher, so consumed by jealousy and bitterness over the fact that her boyfriend is still in communications with an ex. Not that they're necessarily cheating right now. I don't know that. But that they're talking, that they text back and forth, that they're meeting for a hamburger, that they're going to go swimming together. So consumed, instead of just going, you know what, I've had it. I don't want to live this way. I'm breaking up. She continues to stalk, as Dr. Bethany Marshall told us, continues to spy, follows him, catches every communication, even though he now has Moriah Wilson listed under a completely different name. When you see her in court or when you see her all glammed up, it's hard to imagine. This is a woman they had to track down in Costa Rica that then escaped from sheriffs and who was accused of standing over Moriah and shooting her in the heart.
Sometimes your eyes can't believe what you see, Nancy. And I would defer to Dr. Bethany. I'm sure she has clinical terms for it. We would just call it crazy.
But I'm saying you have found people all over the world as U.S. Marshal, and they come off as so friendly, affable, intelligent, in this case, glamorous, but that's not, it's like a lizard is under their skin. That's not who they are.
No, I agree 100%. When she went down to Costa Rica, she assumed a whole new persona. The people that were interviewed that, talked to police thought she was very normal. And she created
really
a
normal.
whole new life for
She was like,
herself.
that's not
Yes.
my birthday. Yeah, I didn't have that Botox and ran out on the bill. That's not my warrant. When she slipped through their fingers to Tony Plahetsky. Tell me what happened in court when the 911 call was played where the friend, Caitlin Cash, was trying to revive Moriah on the floor.
First of all, you could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. I mean, even among journalists who were typing frantically on their keyboard, much of that ceased as this was happening. You could look at the jurors and you could see the pain on their faces. Some of them were wiping away tears, and the friend on the stand was crying, obviously, as this tape was being played. I did think it was absolutely of note that knowing that this tape, this audio was going to be played in court, Mo Wilson's family, most of them exited the courtroom prior to that, but you could see other friends of hers who similarly remained in court, and they, much like some of the jurors, were wiping away tears, and you could hear audible crying in the courtroom.
Man, that's a bad sign. If the other side has the jury crying, uh-oh. What was the defendant, Caitlyn Armstrong, doing during this?
Yeah, a little difficult to see from my vantage point, but she had her back to the crowd, and unfortunately, cameras were not trained on her face in that moment.
Can you tell me what the defense was doing while the 911 was playing? Were they just sitting there taking notes? Remember how O.J. Simpson would just sit there and take notes during the most gruesome testimony? It's like, I don't know what they're talking about. That's not me. Just take notes, doodles. What was he doing?
They were sitting solemnly at the defense table, but not showing any sort of real visible emotion.
Guys, we are trying to determine how the whole evening went down, but I want you to hear what the defense has to say in their opening statement. Take a listen to hour 208.
But you will also hear from experts, and I want you to listen when those experts tell you DNA reporting can mean very little. And ballistic science isn't a science at all. And it's not highly regarded by members of the general scientific community.
I'm going to object to that. There's no evidence that it's not highly regarded by the general science community just because you can find one or two people to say that.
Judge, these are opening remarks. This is what we expect the evidence to show. This is proper. Thank you.
Okay, that cut out on me at the end, but I did hear the defense. The defense is, DNA can mean very little. And ballistic science, well, that's not science at all. What is he talking about? There have been decades gone into ballistic matches. They're like a fingerprint. If they weren't, I would not bother bringing them into court. You don't want to bring something into court and have it attacked on cross-exam and lose all the credibility. And then you lose credibility. Nobody believes a thing you're saying anymore because you've tried to pull something over on the jury. Just don't do it. Ballistics is like a fingerprint. Once a bullet goes down the barrel, it is forever indelibly marked with the interior of that barrel. It's a fingerprint, a ballistic fingerprint. There's no other like it. And DNA, who is this guy? But I guess, practically speaking, Tony Plahetsky, What else can he say?
Well, as I said, Nancy, yesterday, going into opening statements yesterday, a big question is what is going to be the defense? We were all on the edge of our seats. Are they going to try to blame someone else? How are they going to cast this? And essentially, the defense attorney, Joffrey Puryear, former judge here in Austin, former prosecutor here in the Austin area, stood up and said that this is all just a pile of circumstantial evidence. He went as far as to say that his client, Caitlyn Armstrong, has been trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence for a year and a half.
Boo-hoo. She's trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence. Okay, let me ask you this about the vehicle that was circling what turned out to be the murder scene. Tell me about the evidence that they discussed in opening statements about that being Caitlyn Armstrong's car that was circling the murder scene.
Number one, that is how they got on to Caitlyn Armstrong, that they were able to identify the vehicle, particular characteristics on the vehicle, including a bike rack. That's number one. Then they traced that car to her house. Number two was the search warrant that they served on the house, where they recovered that 9mm pistol that matched shell casings found at the scene. Number three, and this is new, Nancy, nobody knew this until yesterday. They recovered, according to prosecutors, DNA from a bicycle, that Mo Wilson's bicycle that was found in some bushes. Guess whose DNA, according to prosecutors, was on the handlebars and on the seat? Caitlyn Armstrong.
Caitlyn Armstrong's wife, her DNA on the murder victim's bike. Take a listen to our cut 189, the prosecutor.
Found DNA on the handlebars, 5 categories. Uninformed with the lowest, strongly, strong, and very strong. Likelihood. That's how they keep it down. You will find, but she'll testify, that the DNA on the handlebars strong. And the DNA expert will testify that with regards to the DNA on the seat of the bike, that there's a very strong likelihood that the DNA on the seat of the bike included DNA from Caitlyn Armstrong. Very strong, highest category here.
Tony Blahetsky, what is the state's theory as to how the defendant, the yoga teacher's DNA got on the murder victim's bike? Why did that happen?
There's no explanation that the defense offered as to why Caitlyn Armstrong's DNA would be on that bicycle. And then, Nancy, in addition to that newly released, at least publicly, DNA evidence, there is also this trove, according to prosecutors, of digital evidence that places Caitlyn Armstrong at the crime scene, that places her, in Costa Rica doing Google searches on herself after she fled to Costa Rica, according to police. Just prosecutors went through this mountain of digital evidence that they have gained over the past year and a half.
I love digital evidence. Can we get back to the state's theory as to why the yoga teacher, Caitlyn Armstrong's DNA is on the murder victim, Moriah Wilson's bike, on the handlebars and on the seat of the murder victim's bike? Why is it there according to the state?
The state contends that Caitlyn Armstrong moved this bike after shooting and killing Mo Wilson. They did not describe why she may have done that, whether or not it was just a pure act of vengeance to throw her bike in some bushes, or whether or not she could have possibly tried to make this look like some sort of burglary gone wrong.
Okay. Yes, I see what you're saying now. Setting it up to be a burglary gone wrong. Okay. Joining me, Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, and author. Jump in, Joe Scott. How did her DNA get on that bike seat and the handlebars? Obviously, the handlebars, she must have gripped them and picked it up by the seat.
Yeah, she did. And guess what, Nancy? I don't believe that this is what we traditionally refer to as touch DNA, where we're sloughing dead skin cells. This is what I believe. I believe that this is probably a deposition of DNA. That means a deposit of DNA on the seat and the handlebars that came off of the alleged perpetrator's hands as a result of sweat. You're talking about...
You are incredible. Because guess what I just wrote down?
What's that?
Avery.
Yeah.
Avery. Stephen Avery.
Wow, that's a name I hadn't heard of in a long time.
Of Making a Murderer, who killed, yes, he did. He murdered a photographer, a young girl in her 20s, Teresa Hallback, and his sweat DNA was found in her car. Tell me about it, Joe Scott. How does that work?
Well, here's the thing. Sweat is not, let's see, it's not as DNA rich as, say, for instance, what we would want would be blood, obviously, right? But you're going to get cellular DNA out of sweat that is going to be much more rich. Okay, so that means that you're not going to have to go back so we don't get off in the weeds technically. You're not going to have to do as many replications. Say, for instance, if you're just talking about touch DNA, you only have a partial strand with dead skin cells. That's not what you're looking at. That's why this is such a momentous discovery by the police. I find it curious that they were able to, because my understanding is when maybe you guys can correct me on this bike was actually found over in the bushes. It's not like it was just kind of standing alone. The fact that they were able to process this bicycle so well under harsh conditions, and we're talking about Austin in the summertime, Nancy, and you know what it's like down there. They were able to recover that DNA off of these surfaces. That gives you an indication as how rich this deposition is, and they were able to tie it back to her. I would imagine at some point in time, when they were able to hook her up on charges, and when they finally had her, corralled somewhere, they did a buccal mucosal swab on her. They took a scraping of her inner cheek cells, and they were able to compare it. Because look, they're looking for any kind of DNA that is not commonly associated with that crime scene. So that gives me an indication that they've done a very thorough job here, Nancy.
I want to talk about the stalking aspect of this. And I think that's best done, not by me, but by the prosecutor in hour 186. You are hearing the opening statement. Listen.
You will learn that at 8:37 p.m., 1 minute after she opened that door, Caitlyn Armstrong's Jeep was seen going through that alley. 1 minute. Trying to open that door 1 minute later, you see that Jeep going through that alley. You'll see that on video surveillance kind of neighbors. 1 minute. 8:36, 8:37, 8:38, probably a few blocks away, Texas. You hear all that from witnesses. Now, Mo sends her last message out at 9:13 p.m. She sent a text message to a podcast.
I guess that's part of that mountain of circumstantial evidence that has had Caitlyn Armstrong trapped in a nightmare of circumstantial evidence for a year and a half. Because Alan Bennett, this places her in her vehicle, Caitlyn Armstrong's Jeep. The victim, Moriah, comes in. She goes in, and we know the timing because the house where she's staying at her friend's house doesn't have a traditional key. It has, I guess, a code. It has a different way to get in that's electronically chronicled. So we know what time she goes in. 1 minute after Caitlyn goes in, after Moriah goes in, Caitlyn Armstrong pulls up and idles outside. Caitlyn Armstrong was following Mo. And I believe Mo came home and the boyfriend dropped her off his motorcycle right there. And in 1 minute, Caitlyn Armstrong creeps up. Wow, what a coinkydink. She happens to be right there within 2 minutes of Moriah being gunned down dead.
Absolutely, Nancy. And there's been a lot of talk of, circumstantial evidence. She's buried under a mountain of circumstantial evidence. It's just circumstantial evidence. Everything is circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence just means there's no direct evidence, and direct evidence would be an eyewitness seeing her pull the trigger. It's all circumstantial evidence. But kind of getting back to an observation you made just a moment ago, prosecutor talking about ballistic evidence. It's not really a science, and DNA. You'll hear from experts that DNA, really means very, very little. Well, technically, prosecutor is correct. He's just playing a very, very bad hand as well as he is able. He could find some people that says, ballistic technology, ballistic evidence, firearm identification testimony. It's really more of an art than a science. And that doesn't mean it's not any good. Same thing, DNA can mean very little. Yeah, when you don't have any DNA. So technically what he's saying is true. But if those prosecutors were savvy, they would try to use everything you said in response to hearing that opening statement. You're right on the money. It's gone. Ballistic evidence has been around for decades. It's been around for centuries. DNA is some of the most accurate, reliable evidence we often have. So you're absolutely right. When they talk about, it's just kind of circumstantial evidence, it is a virtual certainty, just based on some of the observations you just made as to the timeline of these events.
Alan Bennett joining me, high-profile lawyer out of this jurisdiction. This is his jurisdiction, Austin, Texas. One way, for instance, that the defense could be right about DNA meaning very little is if the DNA is rightfully in that location. For instance, if you go look in my kitchen, you're going to find my DNA. If you look in my car, you're going to find my DNA. So what? It means nothing. So one way they could attack this, not to give them any ideas, is that their client, Caitlyn Armstrong's DNA was rightfully and innocently on Moriah Wilson's bike. That's one way they could get around it. Then they could bring in an expert to try and discredit the ballistics information. But all together, it's painting a horrible picture. What about it, Dr. Bethany Marshall? Now, they're not going to have anybody on the stand to do what you do because that would be inadmissible. But that said, we're not in a court of law. Explain to me this behavior. I mean, if I got to go out and follow a man around in the middle of the night and follow him and watch him having a hamburger with somebody, you know what? Don't need him. I got enough problems, enough to do. I don't want to add that in my schedule. Stalk David. No. What does this mean?
Well, when the prosecutor said a mountain, it was the defense who said that she's buried under a mountain of evidence.
Trapped. She's trapped.
I thought, trapped. I thought, of course she's trapped under a mountain of evidence because she's obsessed with Mo. Her psychological, behavioral, and physical fingerprints are everywhere. I'm surprised Armstrong was even able to hold down a job or do anything else. When people stalk, they are preoccupied. They stalk digitally. They stalk physically. They stalk psychologically. They start questioning other people about the victim. I mean, I think it would be interesting to ask all of Armstrong's friends if she was preoccupied with Mo and what was she saying and what was she talking about. But another way to think about this, Nancy, is something called obsessional paranoia. It's the paranoid obsessional belief that somebody's presence on this earth is negatively affecting you. And because of that, you have to eradicate them. And that's one of the main reasons behind domestic homicide. There's this idea that I'm too miserable if you live. I can't stand it if you live. I am trapped inside your presence in a painful kind of way. So not only, she's not just trapped in the evidence, she's trapped in her painful thoughts and ruminating about Mo.
To you, Irv Brandt, the prosecution, and this is happening right now, is bringing on evidence of nefarious behavior that indicates guilt. What we know is that cops find the 6-hour 9mm. The very moment that goes down, Caitlyn Armstrong is caught on video selling her car. Take a listen to our 194.
You'll see Caitlyn Armstrong on a video camera at CarMax. in South Austin, near their home. She goes to CarMax and she sells her Jeep for $12,000. You'll see a video of her in CarMax. On that same day, you'll see an Uber receipt. She rides an Uber to Austin Bergstrom Airport after she sold her car.
So she sells her car and immediately takes an Uber and heads to the airport. So Irv Brandt, is there any more of a textbook getaway?
No, Nancy, there's not. And you can call it a consciousness of guilt, showing, the reasons why. The defense will say that Armstrong travels a lot and is known to travel at the last moment, but who sells their vehicle for cash, gets on a plane, then uses another person's passport to go to another country, to go under an assumed name, and then have cosmetic surgery? It all shows that she flees, and it's, a consciousness of guilt.
And of course, Alan Bennett, a high-profile lawyer joining us out of this jurisdiction, Austin, Texas. The jury is going to hear about her escaping custody and going on the run, 10 days ago. They're going to hear about that too.
Yes, Nancy, I think that is clearly admissible under our law to show evidence of guilt or a consciousness of guilt on Ms. Armstrong's part.
The jury will have a mountain of evidence. Let's see what the defense does with it. But I can tell you this much. A lot of tears in the courtroom today. We wait as justice unfolds. Goodbye, friend. Guys, thank you for watching Crime Online with Nancy Grace here on YouTube.
Bye, Nancy. So that was Nancy. So yeah, she fled for 40 days. That's what they're ending on, kind of there. But that just kind of got us started with the trial because it just started on this last Wednesday. But the way that Nancy was talking, she said she was like outside the courthouse. So I don't know if she's there for the trial or what, or if she has somebody there that, can do that. But maybe she is there. I don't know. She hasn't done anything for Fox Nation in a while. So maybe she's traveling. I'm not sure what Nancy does. She's always busy. She's always like producing a video for one of her like many channels or platforms that she's on. So she's covering this trial. And then there's some like local places that are covering it as well, since they're not streaming the whole trial. I keep scratching my arm. I have a little scratch there. But that's all I have for you guys for tonight. Let me see. Do I have anything else? I don't think so. No, I don't. I think that's all. So that kind of got us all caught up with the Caitlyn, Armstrong case. So tomorrow we will cover something different. And then Monday they go back to court. So I'll be following along all week. And I'll keep you guys posted with any updates, because it seems like 2 weeks for a trial seems pretty quick. I mean, she ran for 40 days. I thought this was going to be 6 weeks. I didn't realize it was only going to be a couple weeks. I don't know how I'd feel about that. If I was a defendant, I'd be like, why don't I get 6 to 8 weeks? Like Murdoch, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of a short time for somebody's life. I mean, life, that's their life. But that's just me, Well, it's good to see everybody. Thank you, Rita. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys being here tonight. I really do. I know that you guys could have been anywhere on YouTube, but you chose to be here with me, and I appreciate that. And Nancy back there. So I'm going to jump off of here. I'll be back on tomorrow to do a live. Don't forget, extra hours sleep tonight. Don't forget to set your clocks back, because, we all love doing that. I don't know why they don't just end that. They could technically end it if they just updated all the electronics and then our car to change. That's like the only places that I think that I need it is like my microwave, my stove, and the car. And the car, I can't even change that. I don't even know how to do that. So it'll be the wrong time for the next 6 months till we go back, till we go forward. So good night to you guys. Thank you guys for joining me this evening. I appreciate you so much. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Have a good evening. Bye, guys.